The wreck bay of the starship Celestial Dawn buzzed with different voices and languages. 4 species sat together around metal tables, sharing drinks and stories after another long day of joint military training. The room smelled like a mix of human coffee, Zephyrian crystal dust, Vractal pheromones, and Corvani sea salt. Jake Collins sat quietly at the edge of the human group, nursing his black coffee. The 40-year-old sergeant had short gray hair and weathered hands that showed years of hard work. Scars ran along his arms like a roadmap of old battles. His dark eyes watched the room, taking in everything but saying nothing. At the center, Table Commander Zefkala stood tall, his crystalline body catching the light. The Zephyrian's voice rang like wind chimes as he told a story about the crystal wars of his homeworld. His people had fought for 300 years, he said, using their natural ability to channel energy through their bodies. The other aliens listened with respect. Next came Captain Vrickthon of the Vractal. His insect-like form clicked and buzzed as he spoke about the great hive battles. His species could move faster than most eyes could follow, he explained, and their natural armor could stop almost any weapon. The Vractal captain's forearms gestured wildly as he described victories against impossible odds. Admiral Morden of the Corvani took his turn, his blue-green skin glistening under the lights. His amphibious people could fight on land or underwater, he said. They could hold their breath for hours and see perfectly in total darkness. Their homeworld had never been conquered because no enemy could follow them into the deep oceans. The aliens looked toward the human table expectantly. Lieutenant Amy Parker, a young woman with red hair, nudged Jake with her elbow. Corporal Ben Taylor, a tall man with kind eyes, also looked at their sergeant. Private Lisa Johnson, barely 20 years old, waited to hear what Jake would say. Jake set down his coffee cup and stood up slowly. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he walked to the center of the room. All conversation stopped. Even the ship's engines seemed quieter. We had warriors too, Jake said in his quiet voice, long before we reached the stars. He looked around the room, meeting each alien's eyes. There were men called Vikings. They came from the cold north of our world. When they fought, they entered something called berserker rage. Pain meant nothing to them. Fear meant nothing. They would charge into battle screaming, and nothing could stop them until every enemy was dead or they were. Commander Zefkala's crystal face showed confusion. Primitive emotion override, he said. Surely this made them easy targets. Jake shook his head. They conquered half our world for 300 years. The Zephyrian made a sound like breaking glass that his people used for laughter. Jake continued. We had soldiers called Spartans. 300 of them held a mountain pass against 1 million enemy soldiers. They knew they would die. They went anyway. They fought for 3 days. When it was over, all 300 were dead, but they had killed so many enemies that the EO invasion failed. Captain Vrickthon's antenna twitched. 300 against 1 million? This is clearly mythology. No species would attempt such foolishness. We had samurai, Jake went on, ignoring the interruption. Warriors who lived by a code of honor. They would rather die than retreat. Some would fight on even after taking wounds that should have killed them instantly. Admiral Morden's gills fluttered in what the Corvani used as laughter. Fascinating fiction, Sergeant Collins. But surely even your species understands the logic of tactical withdrawal when faced with superior force. Jake's expression didn't change. We had Apache warriors, Geronimo. They say he was shot, stabbed, and beaten many times in battle. He kept fighting. He lived to be an old man because he refused to die when his people needed him. The 3 alien commanders exchanged looks. Commander Zefkala spoke first. Sergeant, with respect, these sound like the stories a weak species tells itself to feel stronger. Compensatory fiction, as our psychologists call it. Indeed, Captain Vrickthon clicked. The Vractal have studied human physiology. You are among the physically weakest species we have encountered. Your natural armor is non-existent. Your strength is below average. Your speed is unremarkable. Admiral Morden nodded, his blue head bobbing. Our medical teams have noted that humans require more rest, more food, and more medical care than most species. These stories of unstoppable warriors must be how your people cope with these limitations. Laughter filled the rec bay. Not cruel, laughter, but the kind that comes from adults listening to a child's wild imagination. The Zephyrians made their glass-breaking sound. The Vraktal clicked and buzzed. The Corvani's gills fluttered rapidly. Lieutenant Amy Parker's face turned, red with embarrassment. Corporal Ben Taylor looked down at his hands. Private Lisa Johnson bit her lip, wanting to say something but not knowing what. Jake Collins stood in the center of the laughter, his face calm. He nodded once, as if he had expected this reaction. Without saying another word, he walked back to his seat and picked up his coffee cup. Perhaps, Commander Zefkala said, his voice still tinkling with amusement, humans should focus on the tactical advantages of your species. Your adaptability is remarkable. Your technology is innovative. These are real strengths. Yes, Captain, Vrickthon agreed. Leave the warrior mythology to species actually built for combat. Admiral Morden raised his drink. To practical partnership between our species, may we each contribute what we do best. The aliens drank and returned to their conversations. The humans sat in uncomfortable silence. Amy Parker started to speak, but Jake raised one scarred hand slightly, and she stopped. The sergeant sipped his coffee and watched the room with those dark eyes that had seen too much. He didn't argue with the aliens, he didn't defend the stories. He simply sat and listened as they continued to laugh about human myths and human limitations. Outside the rec bay windows, stars wheeled slowly past. Somewhere among those stars, trouble was waiting. And when it came, Jake Collins knew the galaxy would learn the difference between mythology and memory. The laughter would stop soon enough. 3 days after the laughter in the rec bay, alarm bells screamed through the celestial dawn. Red lights flashed in every corridor as the ship's crew rushed to battle stations. Jake Collins was cleaning his rifle when the emergency call came. Over the speakers, all senior staff to the command center immediately. Priority Alpha situation. Jake set down his weapon and walked quickly through the metal hallways. Other soldiers moved around him, their faces tense. The ship's engines changed pitch as they altered course toward whatever crisis awaited them. The command center buzzed with activity when Jake arrived. Holographic displays showed star charts and tactical data. Commander Zefkala stood near the main screen, his crystal body pulsing with nervous energy. Captain Vrickthon clicked rapidly as he studied sensor readings. Admiral Morden's gills fluttered as he spoke into a communication device. Lieutenant Amy Parker, Corporal Ben Taylor, and Private Lisa Johnson stood with the other human personnel. Their faces were grim as they watched the displays update with new information. Captain Harris, the human commander of the Celestial Dawn, called for attention. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of computers and life support systems. We have received a distress signal from the mining colony on Kepler 442b, Harris announced. The colony is under attack by the Iron Reapers. A collective sound of concern rose from the assembled officers. The Iron Reapers were cyber-enhanced pirates who had terrorized the outer colonies for years. They were known for their brutality and advanced technology. The situation is worse than a simple raid, Harris continued. The pirates have taken 200 civilian hostages and barricaded themselves in the colony's underground complex. They are demanding a massive ransom and safe passage off-world. The main screen changed to show a three-dimensional map of the mining colony. The underground complex looked like a maze of tunnels, chambers, and connecting passages. Red markers showed areas of structural damage. Blue sections indicated flooding from broken water systems. The complex is a nightmare, Harris said. The main tunnels are barely wide enough for 2 people. Many passages are flooded with contaminated water. The pirates have damaged the life support systems, so air quality is poor in many areas. Jake studied the map carefully. His experienced eyes traced the tunnel system, noting choke points and possible routes. The other humans did the same, their military training taking over. Commander Zefkala stepped forward, his crystal form catching the red emergency lights. What is the tactical assessment? He asked. Harris nodded to his tactical officer, who brought up new displays. The pirates have superior numbers, at least 80 fighters, all enhanced with military-grade cybernetics. They have taken positions at key intersections and have rigged explosive charges throughout the complex. Any assault would trigger the explosives, the tactical officer continued. Our models show that a cave-in would kill most of the hostages before we could reach them. Captain Vrichthon's forearms moved as he examined the data. What about using our natural advantages? The Vrachtal can move through small spaces quickly. Negative, the tactical officer replied. The flooded sections require extended underwater movement. Your species cannot maintain combat effectiveness in those conditions for the required duration. Admiral Morden stepped closer to the display. His amphibious nature made him confident about water operations. My people can handle the flooded areas. We are built for underwater combat. The water is contaminated with industrial chemicals, Harris explained. Even with your natural resistance, extended exposure would be fatal. Additionally, the tunnel system requires rapid movement between dry and flooded sections. The transition time would leave any assault team vulnerable. Commander Zefkala studied the map with his energy-sensing abilities. The Zephyrians could use our energy projection to disable the pirates, but the confined spaces would make our abilities dangerous to the hostages. We are also too large for many of the passages. The room fell quiet as everyone stared at the impossible maze on the YO screen. The tactical computer ran simulation after simulation, each one ending in failure. Too many hostages would die. Too many variables could go wrong. The pirates had chosen their position well. There must be a solution, Amy Parker said, her voice tight with frustration. The mathematics are clear, Commander Zefkala replied. Any conventional assault has less than a 5% chance of success. The hostage casualties would be enormous. Captain Vrichthon's antenna drooped. Perhaps negotiation is the only option. Pay the ransom and hope the pirates honor their agreement. The Iron Reapers have never honored an agreement, Admiral Morden said grimly. They will take the ransom and kill the hostages anyway. It is their pattern. The command center fell into a heavy silence. Officers stared at the displays, looking for options that did not exist. The colony's distress signal continued to pulse on the communications board, a steady reminder of 200 people waiting for rescue. Jake Collins had been silent throughout the briefing, studying the tunnel maps with intense concentration. His scarred fingers traced paths through the maze, calculating distances and timing. He looked at the flooded sections, the damaged areas, the explosive charges marked in red. Finally, he stepped forward. I'll go, he said quietly. The room turned to look at him. Commander Zefkala's crystal body pulsed with confusion. Sergeant Collins, this is not a situation for individual heroics. The mission parameters are beyond any single soldier's capabilities. You're talking about a suicide run, Captain Vrichthon clicked. One person against 80 enhanced pirates in a hostile environment. The odds are impossible. Jake looked at the map again, his dark eyes following the tunnel system. Someone has to try. Admiral Morden's gills fluttered with what might have been sympathy. Sergeant, your species' courage is admirable, but this is not a situation where determination can overcome tactical reality. You would die, and the hostages would still perish. Maybe, Jake said. But those people down there don't have any other choice. Captain Harris looked at his veteran sergeant. He had served with Jake for 3 years and knew the man's reputation. Still, this seemed like throwing away a good soldier's life for nothing. Jake, Harris said carefully, I understand your feelings, but we need to find a better solution. Jake Collins looked around the room at all the alien faces, then at his fellow humans. Amy Parker's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Ben Taylor's jaw was set with determination. Lisa Johnson looked scared but ready to fight. Captain, Jake said, request permission to attempt solo infiltration and hostage rescue. The room erupted in protests from the alien commanders. They spoke of mathematics and logic, of impossible odds and certain death. Their voices mixed together in a chorus of rational objections. Through it all, Jake Collins stood quietly, waiting for an answer. His scarred hands hung at his sides. His dark eyes remained fixed on the tunnel map, already planning his route through the maze. 200 people were running out of time, and someone had to try to save them. Jake Collins stood at the entry hatch of the mining colony, checking his equipment one last time. His standard infantry gear felt familiar in his hands. Combat knife on his belt, sidearm at his hip, rifle across his back. Nothing fancy, nothing the aliens would consider advanced technology. Behind him, the command center of the Celestial Dawn buzzed with activity. Drone cameras would follow his mission, sending video back to the ship. The alien commanders watched the screens with expressions that mixed curiosity with certainty that they were about to witness a human's death. "Sergeant Collins," Commander Zefkala's voice came through the communication device. "You still have time to reconsider this course of action." Jake adjusted his gear harness and stepped toward the hatch. 200 people, Commander. They're counting on someone. The mathematics have not changed. Captain Vrickthon clicked over the radio. 80 enhanced pirates with superior weapons and defensive positions. You are one unenhanced human with standard equipment. Jake pressed the hatch release. The metal door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the dark entrance to the underground complex. Stale air heavy with chemical smells drifted out. Emergency lighting cast red shadows on the tunnel walls. "Copy that," Jake said into his radio. "Going silent now." He stepped into the darkness. The tunnel stretched ahead of him, barely wide enough for his shoulders. Jake moved carefully, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The drone cameras followed him, their feeds showing the command center exactly what he saw. Commander Zefkala watched the screens with growing unease. His crystal form pulsed with nervous energy as Jake disappeared into the maze of tunnels. "This is madness," he whispered. The first sign of trouble came 20 minutes into the mission. Jake reached an intersection where the tunnel split into 3 directions. Sounds of movement echoed from the left passage. Heavy footsteps and the mechanical whir of cybernetic enhancements. On the command center screens, the aliens watched Jake press himself against the tunnel wall. 3 pirates rounded the corner, their enhanced bodies gleaming with metal implants. Their eyes glowed with artificial light. Weapons that could punch through starship armor hung from their shoulders. "He should retreat," Admiral Morden said, his gills fluttering with concern. 3 enhanced fighters against 1 human. The logical choice is withdrawal. Instead, Jake Collins did something that made no sense to alien minds. He attacked first. The human sergeant moved like a shadow, his combat knife finding the gap between the first pirate's armor plates. The enhanced fighter dropped before his cybernetic reflexes could respond. Jake rolled under the second pirate's weapon, his rifle firing 3 precise shots into weak points the aliens had not even noticed. The third pirate had time to raise his weapon. Enhanced muscles and computer-assisted targeting should have made him unstoppable. Instead, Jake moved, with a speed that seemed impossible for an unenhanced human. His knife found the pirate's throat before the advanced weapon could fire. 3 enhanced pirates lay dead in the tunnel. Jake Collins stood among them, breathing hard but alive. "How?" Captain Vrickthon's voice carried shock and confusion. His speed was within human normal ranges. His strength showed no enhancement, yet he defeated 3 cybernetically superior opponents. "Experience," Commander Zefkala said quietly, "and something else. Something we do not understand." Jake continued deeper into the complex. The tunnels grew narrower and more damaged. Water leaked from broken pipes, creating pools of contaminated liquid that glowed with chemical residue. The air grew thicker and harder to breathe. The aliens watched their screens as Jake reached the flooded section. The tunnel ahead disappeared into dark water that stretched for 50 meters. Chemical sensors showed toxicity levels that would poison most species within minutes. "He will have to turn back now," Admiral Morden said with certainty. "Even our amphibious people cannot survive in that contamination for extended periods." "Jake." Collins looked at the poisoned water for a long moment. Then he took a deep breath and dove in. The drone cameras lost visual contact in the murky water. Audio picked up only the sound of Jake swimming through the submerged tunnel. The aliens stared at blank screens, waiting for confirmation of the human's death. 3 minutes passed, then 4, then 5. Impossible, Admiral Morden whispered. No human can hold their breath for 5 minutes while swimming through toxic water. The cameras picked up movement ahead. Jake Collins emerged from the contaminated pool, gasping for air but still moving. His uniform was soaked with chemicals that should have burned his skin. His face was pale from oxygen deprivation. But he was alive. His vital signs, the medical officer reported. Heart rate elevated but stable. Oxygen levels dangerously low but recovering. Chemical exposure should have caused severe burns, but he shows only minor skin irritation. Jake pressed forward through the tunnel system. He encountered more pirates, always outnumbered, always outgunned. Each time the aliens expected to watch him die. Each time he found a way to win. When Jake took an energy blast to his shoulder that should have dropped him, he kept fighting. When shrapnel cut his leg and left him limping, he adapted his tactics, but never stopped moving. When blood loss should have made him weak and slow, he seemed to find reserves of strength that medical science could not explain. The breakthrough came when Jake reached a central junction where 12 pirates had set up a defensive position. They had advanced weapons, overlapping fields of fire, and cybernetic enhancements that made them faster and stronger than any normal human. The aliens watched as Jake assessed the situation. Logic demanded retreat. Mathematics proved the fight was unwinnable. Any rational species would have withdrawn to find another route. Jake Collins charged straight at them. What happened next would haunt the aliens' dreams and change their understanding of human nature forever. The human sergeant entered what their military databases would later identify as a berserker state. His fighting became something beyond tactics or training. It was primal, relentless, and terrifying. He moved through the 12 enhanced pirates like a force of nature. When his rifle ran empty, he used his sidearm. When his ammunition was gone, he used his knife. When the knife broke, he used his bare hands and anything he could find as a weapon. The pirates' enhanced reflexes and superior strength meant nothing. Their advanced weapons could not target something that moved with such unpredictable fury. Their cybernetic coordination systems overloaded, trying to process the chaotic violence of Jake's assault. When the fighting ended, 12 enhanced pirates lay dead in the junction. Jake Collins stood among them, covered in blood, both his own and theirs. His chest rose and fell with exhausted breathing. His dark eyes held something that made the watching aliens step back from their screens. By the crystal depths, Commander Zefkala whispered, "What manner of creature have we been sharing our ships with?" Jake picked up a working rifle from the fallen pirates and continued deeper into the complex. The hostages were still waiting, and his mission was not complete. Behind him, the tunnel junction looked like a battlefield where logic and mathematics had gone to die. Word spread through the celestial dawn like wildfire. Off-duty soldiers crowded around monitor screens in every section of the ship. Mess halls fell silent as crews watched the impossible human mission unfold. Even the engine room staff had rigged displays to follow Jake Collins as he moved deeper into the mining colony. Commander Zefkala stood frozen before the main tactical display. His crystal body had stopped pulsing, something that only happened when his people experienced profound shock. Around him, other Zephyrian officers whispered in their wind chime language about what they had witnessed. 14 hours, the medical officer reported. Sergeant Collins has been in active combat for 14 continuous hours. His vital signs indicate severe dehydration, blood loss that should have caused unconsciousness, and muscle fatigue beyond normal human limits. Captain Vrickthon's forearms moved rapidly across his data terminal. His antenna twitched as he pulled up file after file from the ship's database. "I am accessing human historical records," he announced to the command center. Cross-referencing the stories Sergeant Collins told 3 days ago. The main screen split to show Jake's current position alongside historical documents from Earth. Ancient battle reports appeared next to modern medical data. Paintings of Viking berserkers filled one corner while Jake's biometric readings scrolled in another. "The Battle of Thermopylae," Captain Vrickthon read aloud. 300 Spartan warriors against Persian forces, numbering between 100,000 and 300,000. The Spartans held for 3 days before being overwhelmed. Historical casualty estimates suggest they killed between 10,000 and 20,000 enemy soldiers. Admiral Mordun moved closer to the display, his blue-green skin pale with understanding. Those numbers seemed impossible. We assumed they were exaggerated. Over time, the Battle of Stamford Bridge, Captain Vrickthon continued. One Viking warrior held a narrow bridge against an entire English army. Historical accounts claim he killed 40 soldiers before being defeated. We classified this as obvious mythology. Commander Zefkala's voice rang like cracked crystal. Show me the Berserker records. New files appeared on the screen. Ancient Norse texts described warriors who entered trance-like states during battle. They felt no pain, showed no fear, and fought with strength that seemed superhuman. Modern, human military reports use different words but describe the same phenomenon. Combat stress reaction with dissociative features. The medical officer read from a recent human military manual. Soldiers in extreme situations sometimes experience altered states of consciousness that allow them to continue fighting despite severe injuries or exhaustion. On the tactical display, Jake Collins was doing exactly what the ancient texts described. He had been wounded 7 times. His left arm hung at an odd angle from a dislocated shoulder. Burns from energy weapons covered his back. Yet he continued, moving through the complex with steady determination. Lieutenant Amy Parker stood with the other human personnel, her face bright with fierce pride. I never understood the stories my grandfather told about the war, she said quietly. He talked about soldiers who kept fighting when they should have been dead. I thought he was just being dramatic. Corporal Ben Taylor nodded, his eyes fixed on the screen. My uncle served with Jake in the Titan Rebellion. He always said Jake was different, said he'd seen him take wounds that would drop anyone else and keep going like nothing happened. Private Lisa Johnson watched with wide eyes as Jake encountered another group of pirates. This time there were only 4 of them, but they had taken position in a narrow tunnel with good cover and crossfire capabilities. He should wait for them to move, she whispered. Find a better approach. Instead, Jake did what he had been doing for 14 hours. He attacked directly into superior firepower and won through sheer refusal to be stopped. Admiral Mordun turned away from the screen, his gills fluttering with something that might have been fear. We need to understand what we are seeing. Access all available data on human warrior cultures. The ship's database opened files that had been dismissed as primitive folklore. Stories of Apache warriors who fought for days with mortal wounds. Accounts of Celtic berserkers who charged naked into battle against armored Romans. Tales of samurai who continued fighting after losing limbs. We thought these were compensatory myths, Commander Zefkala said, his voice hollow. Stories weak. Creatures told to feel stronger. They are not myths, Captain Vrickthon replied, his antenna drooping with the weight of new understanding. They are genetic memories. Cultural programming. Every human carries the potential for what we are witnessing. The medical officer's voice cut through their conversation. Sergeant Collins has reached the main hostage chamber. Biometric analysis indicates 137 pirates have been eliminated during his infiltration. The number hung in the air like a physical thing. 137 enhanced fighters with superior weapons and armor, defeated by a single human with standard equipment, and the absolute refusal to quit. Jake's approach to the final chamber showed on all screens throughout the ship. The largest group of pirates waited inside, along with 200 terrified civilians. This would be the ultimate test of human determination against superior alien technology. The pirate leader was a massive creature, more machine than organic life. Cybernetic implants covered 70% of his body. His weapons could level buildings. His armor could stop tank rounds. By every measure of combat capability, he was impossible for one wounded human to defeat. Jake Collins studied the chamber through a cracked surveillance monitor. His dark eyes took in the defensive positions, the hostage locations, and the overwhelming firepower arranged against him. Any rational analysis would conclude that the mission was over, that no sane being would attempt to continue. Other species fight until it is no longer logical, Admiral Morden said quietly, watching Jake prepare for his final assault. Humans fight until it is no longer physically possible. Commander Zefkala's crystal form pulsed with new understanding. And sometimes beyond even that. The aliens throughout the ship watched their screens in silence as Jake Collins prepared to prove that human mythology was not about the past. It was a promise about what humans would do when everything seemed hopeless and surrender seemed logical. The only sound in the command center was the steady beeping of Jake's vital signs, growing weaker but never stopping. Like the human himself, his heartbeat refused to quit. 200 hostages waited in the chamber ahead. Jake Collins checked his stolen rifle one last time and prepared to show the galaxy what human determination really meant. Jake Collins stood at the entrance to the main chamber, looking at 200 frightened faces staring back at him. Men, women, and children huddled together in the center of the room, while pirates with glowing cybernetic eyes kept weapons trained on them. The air smelled of fear, blood, and ozone from energy weapons. The pirate leader sat on a makeshift throne built from mining equipment. His name was Korax the Reaper, and he was more machine than man. Metal plates covered most of his body. Artificial muscles gave him the strength of 10 normal beings. His right arm had been replaced with a weapon system that could punch through starship hulls. "So," Korax said, his voice distorted by artificial vocal cords, "one little human thinks he can save everyone. How many of my people did you kill getting here?" Jake stepped into the chamber, his rifle ready but pointed down. Blood from his wounds had soaked through his uniform. His left arm hung useless at his side. Burns covered his back and face. Yet he walked steady and sure. "All of them," Jake said simply. Korax laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Impossible. I had 150 fighters in this complex. Enhanced fighters with military-grade cybernetics." "Had," Jake corrected. The pirate leader's artificial eyes focused on the human sergeant. Sensors built into his skull scanned Jake's vital signs and found readings that should have indicated a dying man. Yet the human stood upright, alert, and ready to fight. "You are badly wounded," Korax observed. "My sensors show blood loss that should have killed you an hour ago, dehydration that should have left you unconscious, muscle fatigue beyond the limits of your species." Jake nodded. "Probably. Then why are you still standing?" Jake looked at the 200 civilians behind the pirate leader. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, peeked out from behind her mother's dress. An old man held his wife's hand while she cried quietly. Young miners barely out of their teens tried to look brave for the children. "Because they need someone to," Jake said. Korax stood up from his throne. His massive frame towered over the human sergeant. Enhanced muscles rippled under armored plates. His weapon arm powered up with a high-pitched whine. "I am stronger than you," the pirate leader announced. "Faster than you. My weapons are superior. My armor cannot be penetrated by anything you carry. Logic says you should surrender." "Logic never met a human before," Jake replied. The fight that followed was not really a fight at all. It was a demonstration of something the galaxy had never seen. Korax was everything he claimed to be. His enhanced body moved with inhuman speed. His weapon arm fired energy blasts that could melt steel. His armor turned Jake's bullets into harmless sparks. But Jake Collins had something that no amount of cybernetic enhancement could provide. He had the absolute refusal to give up when people were counting on him. When Korax's energy weapon burned through Jake's shoulder, the human sergeant kept coming. When the pirate's enhanced fist broke Jake's ribs, he adapted his fighting style and continued the attack. When superior strength threw him across the room, he got up and charged again. The battle became psychological as much as physical. Korax had defeated armies with his enhanced abilities. He had never faced something that simply would not stop, no matter how much damage it took. Jake's rifle ran empty. He drew his sidearm. When that was gone, he used his combat knife. When the knife broke against Korax's armor, he picked up pieces of mining equipment and used them as weapons. The pirate leader's enhanced reflexes began to falter. His tactical computer systems overloaded trying to predict attacks from something that moved with pure determination rather than logical strategy. Fear crept into his artificial mind as he realized that nothing he did would make the humans stop. The end came when Jake managed to get close enough to find the one weakness in Korax's armor. A small gap where the neck joint connected to the helmet. Jake's broken knife found that gap, and the great pirate leader fell. 200 civilians cheered as their captor crashed to the floor. Jake Collins stood over the fallen pirate, swaying, on his feet but still upright. His mission was complete, but he was not finished. It took 4 more hours to lead all the hostages safely out of the complex. Jake carried the wounded children on his back. He helped the elderly navigate the flooded tunnels. He made 7 trips through the contaminated water to ensure everyone reached safety. When the last civilian was safe, Jake Collins finally allowed himself to collapse. The medical team from the Celestial Dawn found him unconscious outside the complex entrance, surrounded by 200 grateful survivors. His vital signs were so weak they could barely detect them. Yet somehow, his heart kept beating. Commander HFY was the first alien to reach the rescue site. His crystal body pulsed with emotions that had no names in his language. He looked at the small human who had accomplished the impossible, then at the faces of the people Jake had saved. "We thought your stories were myths," the Zephyrian commander said quietly to the unconscious sergeant. "We did not understand that they were warnings." Captain Vrickthon arrived with additional medical support. His forearms moved efficiently as he helped load Jake into the medical transport. "Other species tell stories about their gods and heroes," he said to Lieutenant Amy Parker. "Humans tell stories about what they expect from themselves." Admiral Morden stood at the edge of the rescue zone, watching human medics work to save their sergeant's life. His gills fluttered with something approaching reverence. "We have superior strength, speed, and technology," he said to no one in particular. "But humans have something we have never encountered: the absolute refusal to accept defeat." 3 days later, Jake Collins woke up in the medical bay of the Celestial Dawn. Bandages covered most of his body. Medical equipment monitored his slow recovery, but his dark eyes were alert and aware. Private Lisa Johnson sat beside his bed, reading casualty reports. When she saw he was awake, she smiled with relief. "The aliens want to apologize," she said, "for laughing at the stories, for not understanding." Jake nodded slowly. His throat was too dry to speak properly, but he managed a few words. "Were any hostages lost?" "No, Sergeant. All 200 made it out alive." Jake closed his eyes and smiled. "Good." Later that day, alien officers began visiting the medical bay. They came alone or in small groups, speaking quietly with the human who had redefined their understanding of courage and determination. Commander HFY brought ancient texts from his homeworld, comparing them to human warrior stories. Captain Vrickthon shared tactical analyses that proved Jake's mission should have been impossible. Admiral Morden offered formal apologies from his entire species, but it was Private Lisa Johnson who asked the question that mattered most. "Sergeant," she said during one of his recovery sessions, "were those stories about human warriors really true?" Jake looked at his fellow humans gathered around his bed. Amy Parker had requested transfer to Special Operations. Ben Taylor was studying advanced combat techniques. Even Lisa had signed up for additional warrior training. "Every species in the galaxy is stronger than us, faster than us, or smarter than us," Jake said quietly. "But there's one thing we do better than anyone else out there." "What's that, Sergeant?" Jake smiled, his eyes holding the weight of human history. Every impossible battle won. Every last stand that turned the tide. Every moment when ordinary people did extraordinary things because they refused to quit. We show up. The aliens watched from the medical bay doorway, finally understanding that human mythology was not about the past. It was a promise about the future, and they were grateful to have humans as allies rather than enemies. Captain Frank Miller stood on the bridge of the Defiant, his eyes fixed on the main display. Strange energy readings had appeared near the Tau Ceti colony 3 hours ago. Now, Those readings had formed into distinct shapes. Ships, unlike any human vessel. "Captain, the unknown fleet is holding position just outside the colony's defense perimeter," said Lieutenant Amy Clark from her station. Miller nodded. After 15 years in the United Earth Defense Force, he had prepared for this moment his entire career. First contact. Real contact, not just signals or probes. "Dr. Wright, are you ready to attempt communication?" he asked. Olivia Wright, the ship's xenolinguist, looked up from her console. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic interface as she made final adjustments to the first contact protocols. "Ready, Captain. Broadcasting on all frequencies using the mathematical sequence we prepared." The bridge fell silent. Miller felt sweat forming on his brow despite the environmental controls. Humanity had established colonies on Mars, Europa, and a handful of exoplanets within the last 30 years. But in all that time they had found only ruins and microbes, never intelligent life. Until now. The main screen flickered, then filled with an alien face. It had gray-blue skin stretched over a skull-like face with 4 yellow eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Bone ridges protruded from its head like a crown. "This is Captain Frank Miller of the United Earth Defense Force ship Defiant. We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization." The alien's mouth moved, revealing pointed teeth. A series of clicks and hisses emerged before the ship's translation system began to interpret. "I am Prime Executor Krulthak of the Zorn Galactic Empire. Your presence in this sector is unexpected. Our scouts reported no advanced civilizations in this spiral arm." Dr. Wright whispered to Miller. "The translation is working better than expected. Their language has similarities to patterns we found in the Antarctic ruins." Miller nodded slightly before addressing the alien again. "We are a peaceful species interested in diplomatic relations. May I ask the purpose of your visit to our colony?" The alien's eyes narrowed. "This sector falls within the expansion zone of the Zorn Empire. We claim resource rights to all planetary bodies in this system and the one you call Sol." Miller's heart sank. He kept his face neutral as he replied, "This system contains a sovereign human colony established under Earth law. The Sol system is our home system. Neither is available for claiming." Prime Executor Krulthak made a sound that the translator didn't catch. It might have been laughter. "Your claims are irrelevant. The Zorn Empire has ruled for 10,000 cycles. We have incorporated 300 species into our dominion. Some serve as valued subjects, others proved less useful." Miller pressed a hidden button under the command console, sending an alert to Earth Command. "We should discuss this diplomatically," Miller said. "I request time to contact my government." "You may have 6 of your hours," the alien said before the transmission cut. Lieutenant Clark looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting energy buildups in the alien fleet. They're positioning vessels around our research outpost on Tau." SETI D. Miller immediately opened a channel to the outpost. "Research Station Gamma, this is Captain Miller. Begin emergency evacuation procedures immediately." The face of a worried man appeared on screen. "Captain, this is Dr. Ben Foster at Gamma. What's happening?" "Potentially hostile alien contact. Get your people to the emergency shelters now." Miller turned to his communications officer. "Contact Earth Command, Priority Alpha." Within minutes, Admiral Susan Bell's face appeared on his private screen. Her expression was grim as Miller explained the situation. "We've received your alert, Captain," she said. "Hold position but do not provoke them. We're sending Commander John Harris with a diplomatic team. Until then, protect our people. Admiral, I have reason to believe they're preparing to attack the research outpost. We've got 47 civilians there, including families." Admiral Bell's expression hardened. "Understood. You are authorized to position defensively, but do not fire unless fired upon. Earth cannot afford a war we don't understand." As the call ended, Miller turned to his tactical officer, Lieutenant Pete Gomez. "Bring all defensive systems online. Position us between the alien fleet and the research station." "Sir," Lieutenant Clark interrupted, "the aliens are broadcasting again." Prime Executor Krulthak's face appeared, looking somehow more alien in its satisfaction. Captain of Earth vessel, we have reviewed our data on your species. Primitive mammals, barely a century into space travel. Your technological level does not warrant full diplomatic exchange. We will demonstrate the proper respect you should show to the Zorn Empire. Miller stood from his chair. We request peaceful dialogue. Any aggressive action will be considered. A flash of light cut him off. On the tactical display, a massive energy beam lanced from the largest alien ship toward the research outpost. No, Miller shouted. The research station exploded in a blinding flash. The bridge crew watched in horror as debris scattered across the moon's surface. Survivors? Miller asked, his voice tight. Lieutenant Gomez checked his readings, then shook his head. No life signs, Captain. They're all gone. Miller's hands gripped the command chair until his knuckles turned white. Record everything. Prepare to retreat to defensive position Delta. Prime Executor Krulthak's face appeared again on screen. Consider this a demonstration of Imperial authority. Your species will submit resource rights and accept protectorate, status, or face extinction. You have one rotation of your planet to consider. The Empire is generous to compliant subjects. The transmission ended. Get me Earth Command, Miller said quietly. When Admiral Bell appeared, her face fell as she saw Miller's expression. What happened? They destroyed Research Station Gamma. Everyone is dead. 47 civilians murdered as a demonstration. Bell closed her eyes briefly. Return to Earth at maximum speed, Captain. The Security Council is convening. 3 days later, the Defiant approached Earth. From orbit, it looked peaceful. Blue oceans, swirling white clouds, the lights of cities visible on the night side. Miller wondered how long that peace would last. In the United Earth Government headquarters, in Geneva, President Laura Martinez faced the gathered representatives of humanity's nations and colonies. The unprovoked attack on our research outpost represents the greatest threat humanity has ever faced, she said. For the first time in our history, we face an enemy that views us as entirely expendable. Defense Secretary Alan Richards stood. Madam President, it's time to activate the Sleeping Giant Protocol. Murmurs filled the chamber. Are you certain? Martinez asked. We've prepared for this scenario since we found the Antarctic ruins in 2089, Richards replied. The Zorn Empire believes we are defenseless primitives. They don't know what we discovered, what we've built. Martinez nodded slowly. Very well, Captain Miller. Frank Miller stepped forward, still wearing the uniform he'd had on when he watched those 47 people die. Captain, you will deliver humanity's response to the Zorn Empire, the President said. You will give them one warning to withdraw, just one. Miller's expression was stone. And if they refuse, Secretary Richards answered, then we show them why it was a mistake to threaten Earth. As Miller left the chamber, Lieutenant Commander Paul Garcia, head of Special Weapons Division, fell into step beside him. They've awakened the sleeping giant, Garcia said quietly. Miller nodded. And they have no idea what's coming. Across the solar system, hidden facilities hummed to life. On the dark side of the moon, massive hangar doors opened for the first time. Beneath the clouds of Venus, weapons platforms powered up. In the asteroid belt, disguised defense stations activated targeting systems. Humanity had found the ruins of an ancient civilization on Earth years ago. They had learned, they had built, they had prepared, and now they would fight. The Defiant moved through space alongside two sister ships, the Valiant and the Relentless. Captain Frank Miller stood on the bridge, watching as Earth grew smaller behind them. His orders were clear. Deliver the warning, then prepare for what would come after. Lieutenant Clark, status report on the Zorn fleet, Miller said. Amy Clark looked up from her station. They've reached Mars orbit, Captain. 32 ships now. More arriving through what appears to be some kind of faster-than-light entry point. Miller nodded. And our defensive grid? Online but hidden, as ordered. The Zorn are scanning, but they're only detecting our regular military installations. The special facilities remain undetected. Dr. Olivia Wright approached the captain. The translation system has been updated with everything we learned from the first contact. We should be able to communicate more clearly now. Good, Miller said. We need them to understand exactly what we're saying. On the command deck of Earth's hidden lunar base, Admiral Susan Bell watched tactical displays showing the approaching alien armada. The room was carved deep into the moon's surface, shielded from detection by technology reverse-engineered from the Antarctic ruins. They're bringing in reinforcements, said Lieutenant Commander Paul Garcia, standing beside her. They think this will be easy. Bell's face remained stern. What's the status of Project Nemesis? Dr. Kate Rogers reports all systems green. The grid can be activated on your command. Bell nodded. And the rest of our fleet? 50 stealth battleships, ready to deploy from Saturn's rings. Another 30 smaller vessels hidden throughout the asteroid belt. The Mars Defense Force is on standby, though their existence remains hidden from the Zorn. Good, Bell said. The President's orders are to follow Captain Miller's timeline. The moment the warning expires, we show them everything. In Geneva, President Laura Martinez met with the Security Council. The room was tense as Defense Secretary Alan Richards presented the latest intelligence. The Zorn Empire spans over 200 star systems, Richards said. They've conquered dozens of species. Some are incorporated as servant races, others are used as slave labor or simply wiped out to make room for Zorn colonies. And you believe our hidden forces can stand against them? Asked the representative from the African Union. Richards nodded. Our technology may be young, but what we recovered from the Antarctic ruins gave us a 1,000-year leap forward. We've spent decades preparing for this possibility. Martinez stood. We never revealed these preparations because we hoped they wouldn't be necessary. Now they're our only hope. She turned to a screen showing the Defiant's position. Captain Miller will deliver our message. One warning, that's all they get. The 3 human ships approached the Zorn fleet near Mars orbit. The alien vessels were impressive. Curved hulls covered in glowing runes, some as large as small cities. Open a channel, Miller ordered. The face of Prime Executor Krulthak appeared on screen, his 4 yellow eyes narrowing at the sight of Miller. You return with only 3 ships, the alien said. Have you come to surrender your claim to these systems? Miller stood tall. I come with a message from the United Earth government. It will be transmitted once and will not be repeated. Nodded to Dr. Wright, who pressed a sequence on her console. The prepared message began to broadcast on all frequencies, translated into the Zorn language. Miller's voice rang clear. To the Zorn Empire. You have attacked unprovoked and murdered our people. You have 24 Earth hours to withdraw from all human territories and open diplomatic channels or witness the consequences of your mistake. This is our first and only warning. Prime Executor Krulthak made the sound again that might have been laughter. Your primitive species threatens the Zorn Empire. Our smallest vessel could destroy your 3 ships and your homeworld before your next sunrise. Miller's face remained expressionless. 24 hours. The choice is yours. He signaled to end the transmission. Lieutenant. Gomez looked up from tactical. Captain, they're targeting us. Hold position, Miller said. Do not engage unless fired upon. They need to make the first move. Deep in space, the message reached the Zorn Emperor's personal vessel. Emperor Vexazorax watched the human warning with amusement as his advisors gathered around. What an entertaining species, the Emperor said. They face extinction yet maintain this illusion of strength. Grand Admiral Vexcor bowed. My Emperor, our intelligence suggests their technology is primitive. They achieved faster than light. Travel only 30 years ago. They have no significant military presence beyond their home system, and yet they issue threats, the Emperor mused. Perhaps they have hidden weapons? Nothing our scanners can detect, the Admiral replied. Their Mars colony has minimal defenses. Their moon shows some military installations, but nothing that could threaten our fleet. The Emperor rose from his throne. Send in the rest of the Armada. I want this resolved quickly. These creatures will make adequate servants or test subjects. If they resist, wipe them out. Back on Earth, Dr. Kate Rogers worked in the hidden command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. Screens around her showed the Zorn fleet growing in size. Over 200 ships now, she said to the young officers around her. They're bringing in their big guns. Can we really stop that many? Asked a junior officer. Rogers smiled. They think we're primitive because we only reached the stars recently. What they don't know is why we advanced so quickly. She walked to a large display showing the solar system. Small dots of light represented hidden human installations. When we found the Antarctic ruins in 2089, we discovered technology left by an ancient race. Some believe they were our ancestors who seeded Earth with humans. Others think they were visitors who left us gifts. She touched the display, zooming in on Mars. Either way, we've spent decades building weapons based on their designs. The Zorn think they're facing a young species with basic spacecraft and projectile weapons. Her finger traced the asteroid belt where dozens of hidden stations waited. They have no idea what's about to hit them. On the Defiant, Miller received a private transmission from Admiral Bell. The President has authorized full deployment the moment the deadline expires, Bell said. All hidden forces are standing by. The sleeping giant protocol is now fully active. Miller nodded. And if they attack before the deadline? Then we respond immediately with everything we have. As the transmission ended, Lieutenant Clark looked up in alarm. Captain, the Zorn fleet is launching fighter craft. They're heading toward the Mars colony. Miller made his decision instantly. Alert Admiral Bell. Looks like they've made their choice early. Across the solar system, hidden human forces prepared for battle. The Zorn Empire had dismissed humanity's warning as empty words. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first wave of Zorn fighters streaked toward the Mars colony. Their pilots were confident. This would be an easy victory. A simple show of force to make these primitive humans understand their place in the galaxy. Enemy fighters approaching Mars defense perimeter, Lieutenant Clark reported on the Defiance bridge. Colony shields are active, but they won't hold against a sustained attack. Captain Miller's face hardened. Send the signal. In his 15 years of service, Miller had never given this kind of order. But the memory of the destroyed research station and its 47 dead civilians was fresh in his mind. The Zorn had made their choice. Admiral Bell received the signal in the Lunar Command Center. They've broken the deadline. All units, Operation Awakening is now active. Throughout the solar system, hidden stations came to life. On Mars, Colonel Eric Shaw stood in the underground command center that officially didn't exist. Activate the defense grid, Shaw ordered. His team worked quickly, entering the codes that would reveal Mars's true defenses. The Zorn fighters were just entering firing range of the visible Mars defenses when the ground beneath them seemed to shift. Massive sections of the Martian surface slid apart, revealing hidden missile silos and energy weapon platforms that had been disguised as natural terrain. What is this? Demanded the Zorn squadron leader as his sensors suddenly detected dozens of new threats. Before the aliens could react, the hidden defenses fired. Beams of blue-white energy lanced upward, slicing through Zorn fighters. Missiles with quantum-entangled warheads appeared to blink out of existence, then reappear inside the shields of the larger Zorn vessels. On Europa, Commander Lisa Bennett watched similar defenses activate beneath the icy surface of Jupiter's moon. Defense grid online, targets acquired. Across the asteroid belt, what had appeared to be ordinary space rocks suddenly revealed themselves as disguised battle stations. They powered up weapons and began targeting the rear of the Zorn fleet. On the Zorn command ship, Grand Admiral Vexcor received alarming reports from all directions. Impossible, he exclaimed, looking at the tactical display. Their defenses were hidden from our scans, and these weapons, they're bypassing our shields. He turned to his subordinates. Launch all fighters, full attack formation. The Zorn believed in overwhelming force. Their empire had conquered hundreds of worlds through superior numbers and firepower. Now they would teach these humans the same lesson. But humanity had been preparing for this day since finding the Antarctic ruins. In the hidden command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Richard Payne watched the battle unfold. It's time, he said. Launch the fleet. From Saturn's rings, where they had been hidden among the ice and rock, 50 human battleships emerged. Each was equipped with stealth technology and weapon systems based on the ancient designs found in the Antarctic ruins. Captain Miller watched from the Defiant as the human counterattack began. "All ships, engage the enemy. Remember your training." The 3 ships that had delivered humanity's warning were joined by the hidden fleet. Together, they moved to engage the Zorn Armada. In the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Kate Rogers activated the final defense system. Moon-based gravity weapons online, targeting largest enemy vessels. Hidden emplacements on the moon's surface revealed massive cannon-like structures. They fired not bullets or energy beams, but concentrated gravitational distortions that warped space around the targeted Zorn ships. The aliens' massive dreadnoughts were suddenly caught in localized gravity wells, their hulls compressing under forces they were never designed to withstand. On his throne ship, the Zorn Emperor watched in growing rage as his fleet reported heavy losses. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are primitives." His advisors had no answers. The intelligence they had gathered on humanity had been incomplete. Critically incomplete. The battle raged throughout the solar system. Near Mars, the Zorn forces that had survived the initial surprise were regrouping, preparing to launch a second wave at the colony. "They're adjusting their shields," Colonel Shaw reported to Admiral Bell. "Our quantum missiles are becoming less effective." Bell nodded. "They learn quickly, switch to phase disruptors." The Mars defenses adjusted, firing weapons that didn't try to bypass the Zorn shields but instead destabilized them at a quantum level, causing them to flicker and fail. On the Defiant, Lieutenant Gomez monitored the battle. "Captain, we've destroyed or disabled approximately 1/3 of their fleet, but they're still coming." Miller nodded grimly. "They didn't expect a fight. Now they're angry." Dr. Wright looked up from her station. "Captain, I've been analyzing their communications. Their main reinforcements are coming from staging areas in 3 nearby star systems. I've identified the coordinates." Miller's eyes narrowed. "Send that information to Admiral Bell immediately." In Lunar Command, Bell received the data. "Lieutenant Commander Garcia, is the Artemis ready?" Garcia nodded. "Yes, Admiral. The prototype is operational, but we've never tested it at this scale." "We don't have a choice," Bell said. "Target the nearest Zorn staging area and prepare to fire." Deep within the lunar installation, a massive weapon powered up. Based on the most advanced technology from the ruins, the Artemis cannon was designed to create a temporary wormhole. In theory, it could deliver a devastating strike to targets many light years away. Now it would be tested in combat for the first time. On Earth, President Martinez addressed the United Earth population through an emergency broadcast. "Citizens of Earth and all human colonies," she began. "As many of you have now seen, we are engaged in our first interstellar war. The Zorn Empire attacked without provocation, killing innocent civilians and demanding our surrender." Images of the battle appeared on screens across the planet. What they did not know is that humanity has prepared for this possibility. The defense systems now engaging the enemy have been developed in secret over decades, based on technology we discovered in ancient ruins on our own planet. She paused, letting the information sink in. "We gave them one warning. They chose not to heed it. Now they will understand why that was a mistake." Back in space, the moon's surface glowed as the Artemis cannon fired. A beam of concentrated energy shot into space, then appeared to fold in on itself, creating a swirling vortex that linked 2 points in space. On the other side, at the Zorn staging area 12 light-years away, a similar vortex appeared in space directly above their largest military base. Through this artificial wormhole came a concentrated beam of energy drawn from Earth's sun itself. The Zorn base, along with 50 ships preparing to join the attack on Earth, vanished in a blinding flash. For the first time in 10,000 years of conquest, the Zorn Empire faced an enemy that could hit them anywhere, at any time, with devastating force. And humanity was just getting started. Grand Admiral Vexcor stared at the display in disbelief. The staging base at Procyon, along with 50 warships, had simply vanished. The humans had somehow struck a target 12 light-years away with devastating power. "Send word to the Emperor," he ordered. "We are not facing primitives. Their technology rivals our own in some areas and may exceed it in others." On his throne ship, still hanging back at a safe distance, Emperor Vexazorax received the news with cold fury. In 10,000 years, no species had ever surprised the Zorn Empire like this. "Order all available forces to converge on the human home system," the Emperor commanded. "This is no longer about acquiring new territory. These humans must be eliminated before they become a greater threat." Throughout Zorn space, ships changed course. Over 700 vessels from all corners of the Empire began moving toward Earth. In the Lunar Command Center, Admiral Bell studied the tactical displays with growing concern. Their surprise attack had been effective, but the Zorn still outnumbered them. "The Artemis cannon needs 6 hours to recharge," Lieutenant Commander Garcia reported. "And our sensor network has detected large Zorn forces moving toward our system." Bell nodded grimly. "They're taking us seriously now. That's both good and bad." She turned to Dr. Rogers. "Is the solar forge ready?" "Yes, Admiral," Rogers replied. "But using it will reveal our most advanced technology. Once the Zorn see it in action, they'll develop countermeasures." "We may not have a choice," Bell said. "Begin preparations." On the Defiant, Captain Miller received new orders. "All ships, form up. We're going on the offensive." The human fleet, now reinforced with vessels from the Mars and Jupiter Defense Forces, moved to engage the main Zorn fleet. Though outnumbered, the human ships had the advantage of surprise and technology the Zorn had never encountered. Dr. Wright worked at her station, analyzing Zorn communications. "Captain, I've managed to access part of their network. They're calling in reinforcements from across their empire." Miller nodded. "How many?" "Hundreds of ships," Wright said quietly. "Maybe more." Miller's expression remained determined. "Then, we need to hit them harder. Now." He opened a channel to Colonel Shaw on Mars. "Colonel, is your team ready?" Shaw's face appeared on screen. "Ready, Captain. Major Foster's strike team is prepped and waiting your signal." Miller nodded. "Begin. Operation Thunderbolt." On Mars, Major Diane Foster led her team of 20 soldiers to a special hangar. Each wore advanced combat armor that gleamed with a faint blue light. "Remember your training," Foster told them as they boarded a small, sleek vessel. "Our phase shift. Technology will get us onto their command ship, but it only works for 30 minutes before needing to recharge." The soldiers checked their weapons. Advanced energy rifles based on the ancient technology. They had trained for years for this mission. "Our objective is simple," Foster continued. "Capture Prime Executor Krulthak and access their central computer system. Dr. Wright needs that data to complete her hack into their network." The strike team's ship lifted off, its outline blurring as its stealth systems activated. It accelerated toward the Zorn command vessel, becoming nearly invisible to sensors. As the battle raged across the solar system, Earth prepared its greatest weapon. In orbit around the Sun, a massive structure that had been disguised as a scientific station revealed its true purpose. The Solar Forge was humanity's most ambitious project, a device capable of harnessing a tiny fraction of the Sun's energy and focusing it with incredible precision. "Solar Forge is online," Dr. Rogers reported from the Rocky Mountain Command Center. "Targeting incoming Zorn reinforcements." "General," Payne gave the authorization. "Fire when ready." The Solar Forge began to glow as it absorbed energy directly from the Sun. Between its 3 massive arms, a ball of plasma formed, growing brighter until it was painful to look at even through filtered screens. When it reached full power, the Forge released the energy in a controlled burst. The beam shot through space, then split into multiple strands that curved and twisted like living things. In the space between Jupiter and Saturn, where the first wave of Zorn reinforcements was emerging from faster-than-light travel, a controlled wormhole opened. The solar energy poured through, engulfing a quarter of the incoming Zorn fleet in artificial solar fire. On his throne ship, the Emperor watched the destruction with growing rage. "What manner of weapons are these?" How did the humans develop such technology? His science advisor stepped forward nervously. My Emperor, we have analyzed their energy signatures. These weapons share characteristics with the ancients. The Emperor turned sharply. The precursors? Impossible. Their civilization vanished 50,000 years ago. Yes, Emperor. But the evidence suggests these humans have somehow acquired and adapted precursor technology. For the first time, fear flickered in the Emperor's eyes. The precursors were a legend even to the long-lived Zorn, a civilization so advanced that they were said to have seeded life throughout the galaxy before mysteriously disappearing. Meanwhile, Major Foster's team had successfully boarded the Zorn command ship. Their phase shift technology allowed them to pass through the hull itself, bypassing the shields entirely. We're in, Foster reported quietly through her secure comm link. Moving to the command center. The strike team moved swiftly through the alien vessel. Their armor rendered them nearly invisible to Zorn sensors, and they dispatched the few guards they encountered silently. When they reached the command center, Foster gave the signal. The team burst in, weapons ready. Prime Executor Krulthak turned, in shock as the human soldiers appeared. Impossible! Surrender, Foster demanded, aiming her weapon at the alien's head. Or die. For a moment, it seemed the Zorn leader would resist. Then, calculating his odds, he lowered his hands. The Emperor will not ransom me. We don't want ransom, Foster said. We want information. As the strike team secured the command center, one of Foster's specialists began downloading data from the Zorn computers. The information would give Dr. Wright what she needed to complete her hack into the Zorn network. Back on Earth, President Martinez received word of the successful boarding. Tell Major Foster's team they have 30 minutes to extract with the prisoner. Then order all ships to fall back to defensive positions. Fall back? Defense Secretary Richards asked, surprised. We're winning! Martinez shook her head. This is just the first wave. Our long-range sensors show something massive approaching, likely the Emperor's personal fleet. We need to consolidate our forces. In space, Captain Miller received the order to withdraw. All ships return to Earth defense perimeter. Bring all wounded. As the human fleet pulled back, the Zorn pressed forward thinking they had gained an advantage. They didn't realize they were being drawn into a trap. From the lunar base, Admiral Bell watched the Zorn fleet pursue the retreating human ships. They were moving into perfect position for Earth's final surprise. All defense grid stations, Bell ordered. Prepare for synchronized attack on my mark. Around Earth, hundreds of orbital platforms that had remained dormant and hidden now revealed themselves. The planet's final defensive line was about to show its power. The real battle for Earth was just beginning. The space between Earth and Mars filled with ships. The human fleet had pulled back to Earth's orbit, forming a defensive ring around the planet. Behind them, the hidden orbital platforms waited, weapons ready. The Zorn fleet pressed forward, confident in their superior numbers. At the center of their formation was a massive ship that dwarfed all others. The World Ender, the Emperor's personal dreadnought. Captain Miller looked at the tactical display on the Defiance bridge. The World Ender was over 20 kilometers long, bristling with weapons. It was said to be capable of cracking a planet's crust. All ships, maintain position, Miller ordered. Wait for Admiral Bell's signal. In the Lunar Command Center, Bell watched the approaching enemy fleet. Major Foster's team had returned safely with their prisoner, Prime Executor Krulthak, and the data they had stolen was proving invaluable. Dr. Wright has completed her analysis of the Zorn network, Lieutenant Commander Garcia reported. We now have access to their communication systems and partial control of their targeting systems. Bell nodded. And the gravity manipulation network? Online and ready, Dr. Rogers confirmed. All 50 nodes are powered and synchronized. Bell took a deep breath. This is what we've prepared for. Let's show them what humanity can do. On the World Ender, Emperor Vex's Zorax prepared to deliver a final blow to the humans. Their resistance had been surprising, but it would end here. Target their largest population centers, he commanded. Once their major cities are destroyed, their will to fight will crumble, His weapons officers began the firing sequence for the dreadnought's main weapon, a gravity lance that could tear through a planet's surface. Suddenly, alarms blared across the Zorn fleet. "Emperor," an officer called out. "Our targeting systems are malfunctioning. Someone has infiltrated our network." The Emperor rose from his throne, furious. "How is this possible?" On Earth, Dr. Wright coordinated with teams around the world, using the stolen Zorn access codes to disrupt the enemy fleet's systems. "We've bought ourselves a few minutes," she reported to President Martinez. "But they'll bypass our intrusion soon." Martinez nodded. "That's all the time we need." She turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to all Earth citizens and colonies." The president's face appeared on screens across the solar system. Her expression was solemn but determined. "People of Earth and the human colonies, the moment of our greatest test has arrived. The Zorn Empire has brought its full might against us, intending to destroy our civilization." Images showed the massive enemy fleet approaching Earth. "For generations we have prepared in secret, building defenses based on the technology left by those who came before us. Today, we use everything we have to defend our home." Martinez looked directly into the camera. "If there are any among you who still believe in prayer, now is the time. To all others, know that whatever happens next, humanity will not fall easily." As evacuation ships carried civilians to underground shelters, Captain Miller received new orders. The Defiant and its sister ships would lead a desperate attack on the World Ender, while Earth's final defense is activated. "All hands battle stations," Miller ordered. "Prepare for direct assault on the enemy dreadnought." Lieutenant Clark looked up from her station. "Sir, that ship is too powerful. We can't destroy it with conventional weapons." "We don't need to destroy it," Miller replied. "We just need to disable its main weapon before it fires." The human fleet moved forward, accelerating toward the massive dreadnought. Smaller Zorn vessels moved to intercept them, but the humans had one final surprise. "Activate quantum displacement drives," Miller ordered. The human ship's engines glowed blue, then they seemed to blink out of existence. When they reappeared, they were past the Zorn defensive line, directly in front of the World Ender. On the Cure. Dreadnought's bridge, the Emperor watched in shock as the human ships appeared from nowhere. "Fire all weapons, destroy them." The World Ender's secondary batteries opened fire, catching several human ships. 2 exploded immediately. 3 more took heavy damage, but the Defiant and 5 other ships continued on course, aiming directly for the dreadnought's main weapon emitter. "Impact in 10 seconds, Lieutenant Gomez reported on the Defiant's bridge. Miller looked at his crew, pride in his eyes. "It's been an honor serving with you all." The Defiant slammed into the World Ender's main weapon at full speed. The human ship was destroyed instantly, but the impact caused a chain reaction through the dreadnought's weapon systems. Secondary explosions rippled along its length. From the Lunar Command Center, Admiral Bell watched the sacrifice with tears in her eyes. "Captain Miller did it. The World Ender's main weapon is disabled." She turned to Dr. Rogers. "Activate the gravity manipulation network, now." Around Earth's orbit, 50 hidden satellites activated simultaneously. Each generated a carefully controlled gravitational field. Alone, they were impressive. Together, they created something unprecedented. Between Earth and the Zorn fleet, space itself began to distort. What appeared to be a small black hole formed, growing rapidly as the network poured energy into it. "The singularity is stable," Dr. Rogers reported. "Gravitational pull at calculated levels." The artificial singularity began to pull in the nearest Zorn ships. Their engines fought against the pull, but the gravity was too strong. One by one, they were torn apart, their fragments spiraling into the growing darkness. The World Ender, despite its massive size, began to move toward the singularity. Its damaged engines couldn't generate enough power to escape. Emperor Vexazorax watched in horror as his mighty ship was dragged toward destruction. "This cannot be! We are the Zorn! We have ruled for 10,000 years! The Emperor's personal..." Guard rushed him to an escape pod as the dreadnought broke apart under the gravitational stress. Throughout the solar system, The remaining Zorn ships either surrendered or fled. The battle was over. 3 days later, in Geneva, the United Earth Council convened a special session. Prime Executor Krulthak was brought before them in restraints. "Your Emperor escaped," Admiral Bell told the alien prisoner. "But the message we're sending back with you will reach him and all others." President Martinez stepped forward. "Tell your Emperor and all who would threaten us. We gave you one warning. We will not give a second to any who threaten us. Humanity stands ready." As the words were translated, Krulthak's 4 eyes widened in understanding. The humans had not just defeated the Zorn, they had changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. 1 month later, 3 ships from different alien civilizations approached Earth. They came not with weapons, but with peace offerings and alliance proposals. Word had spread quickly about the species that had defeated the previously unstoppable Zorn Empire. Admiral Bell, now leading Earth's new United Defense Force, welcomed the alien representatives. As they discussed terms of peaceful contact, an urgent message arrived from Mars. "Admiral," a technician said, handing her a datapad. "The ruins we found in Valles Marineris, they're activating." Bell read the report with growing amazement. Ancient defense systems buried throughout the solar system had begun to power up, responding to the recent conflict. Systems no human had built or even discovered yet. She looked up at the alien representatives. "It seems there is much more to learn about our solar system, and perhaps about ourselves." In the depths of space, Emperor Vexazorax's escape pod drifted toward a distant Zorn outpost. As he waited for rescue, he reviewed what had happened again and again. The humans had not just won a battle. They had awakened something ancient and powerful, something the Zorn Empire had feared since its earliest days. The Emperor looked out at the stars. For the first time in his long life, the future was uncertain. And somewhere in those stars, humanity was just beginning to discover its true potential.